So we're here at True North Arms today. We're going to go over how easy it is to install the enhanced Gen 2 upper for the WK. This is a stock WK180-C Gen 2. So this is the Gen 2 enhanced upper from TNA. A couple benefits that people seem to be a big fan of, and I can understand why. First of all, we can add a dust cover now, standard AR-15 dust cover. We'll pop one of those on. We have a built-in, as opposed to added-on, shell deflector, which is really nice for just protecting the side of your gun from getting all those brass dings, and so you don't have to eat any brass. The other big benefit, we had this issue on the Gen 1 WK and the Gen 2, is certain optic devices, like a EOTech G33 magnifier, will not fit on the rail because of how wide this body is. And it was designed for the AR platform. You couldn't get it on the rail, so we lifted the rail up a little bit so we can add whatever optic you feel like. So step one, we need to remove the stock handguard. So there's 8 screws with little lock washers. Because of the way these barrel nuts hold on to the handguard, you will need to time your barrel nut. I'll show you a way to do it that will make your life a little bit easier. So all we need to do is pull the 8 screws out. If you have any grips here, it might get stuck because your M-lock screws will bump into your gas block, so you'll have to pop that off. And sometimes mounts on the side will give you that, but not often. And then this just slides off the top. And there's step one. The next thing we'll do is we need to get rid of this rod so we can pop this barrel nut off. The easiest way to do that, a lot of guys will pull off the gas system. You don't need to do that. It can be annoying because there's a C-clip and these are staked now. We'll just take the pressure off and unscrew the plug / valve thing. It's not really a valve, but that'll come out. It's a good chance to clean it. And then this will all just come out the front. Next, we need to separate the upper and lower. First of all, take any pressure off this little pin at the back here. First thing we'll do is we need to pop these pins out. So it doesn't take much pressure. We'll just pop this one out. So 1, 2. Then we'll put a little pressure on this. And then we'll remove our guide rods and return springs. Pop out our bolt. This is the charging handle. I like to take the charging handle out because you'll need it for the new one, and I don't like stuff jingling around. Just crack your barrel nut free. With the barrel nut, your best bet is using shock, not just pressure. Don't just push and push on the wrench. Give it a tap with a hammer. It'll just make your life a lot easier. And then we just pop off the old lower. We're going to install the upper. One other thing that's a benefit about Gen 1 or Gen 2 enhanced uppers is we run a brass bushing. And that is much better for cold weather shooting. You have a lot less issues with breaking the little plastic insert. These are oiled brass bushings, so they're self-lubricating. And you don't really want to cover this in a ton of lube because it'll just get dirty. And this kind of defeats all those issues and wears really nicely. They're just awesome. You throw them in and you're done. It's probably one of our most sold upgrades for the WK in general. The Gen 1 enhanced upper, we also provisioned the hole so that you could just drop one of these in. With the stock ones, we do sell the kits, but they require a little bit of drilling and machine work to get them to fit. Just because the brass bushings are thicker and a lot sturdier, so you need more room in your upper to install them. These stock right out of the box. So you just slide it on your barrel extension, line your pin up, and thread on your barrel nut. So we slide our upper onto our insert. We go to put our barrel nut on, but first I like to clean some of the old anti-seize away. And yes, you want to use anti-seize on this because the steel on aluminum will never come unstuck. We sell Aeroshell, which is aircraft grade anti-seize, in these little containers. They're fantastic. I keep them by my desk. So we just add a little bit. It doesn't need to be a ton. You just want a little layer between the steel threads and the aluminum threads. That should be enough. And we'll just thread this on all the way. Now we'll get it as tight as we can by hand. These screws. You'll notice I haven't installed our gas system yet because we're not done here. We need to time this barrel nut so that our pick rails line up and these wings line up. So what I like to do is just slide it on, line it up, and take a look at where my holes are. So I've noticed that I'm going to have to torque this barrel nut down, and it's going to turn this way. So these holes are past where I'd want them. So in this case, a good idea might be a barrel nut shim. So what I've noticed is, depending on how these were drilled, how perpendicular they are to the round barrel nut, they'll all sit slightly differently. So what I use is, you'll get a slight shadow mark from the lock washer, and I just try to get the barrel nut where I need it, and you've got a fair bit of range of torque, anywhere between 30 and 50. 50 is kind of pushing it, but you just want that hole lined up to the center of this one, where this shadow mark is, because each barrel nut and shroud / handguard will have a different kind of relationship when you put these bolts in, because these are flats and these are rounds. So you want this lined up here. The wings will help a ton, and then this. You don't have to stress so much about torquing this a ton, because these wings will hold it on. Other barrel nut handguard combos won't have these wings, but they also don't need to be timed this accurately. So with those, torque them to 45 and then line up your pick rails. So when you're timing this, right, I don't have the gas system installed in case I have to turn this more. I don't want to bend my piston rod with a wrench. So just checking these holes, I wouldn't recommend is enough. I put a screw in each hole, tighten them up, and make sure this is still aligned. You don't need to put all 8, 4 is enough. And then once you're happy with your alignment, now we'll put our gas system back in. It's pretty simple. We just slide this back through this hole. Okay. I just pull the spring back a little bit so I can get the rod in, and just make sure it doesn't happen with these kits very often, but just always make sure that this moves easily. There'll be some spring pressure, but it shouldn't feel bound. It shouldn't feel like it's like grinding on anything. It should just be, as long as you have it aligned, nice and smooth, because any friction on this means you're eating your gas pressure to push past the friction and not operate your firearm. So then just hold this back a little bit. This guy goes in the only way it could possibly go. And then just tighten it up. You can, if you want, depending on your maintenance schedule, you can Loctite these. Please use blue Loctite, because if anyone ever has to take it out and you've used red, they're not going to be your friend anymore. So we won't do it for this one right now. You'll get to a point, especially with some carbon on there, it'll get a little tight. It's pretty easy. You can use an Allen. So all you want to do is snug it up a little bit. It doesn't need a ton. It's not holding a ton of gas. It's not holding a ton of force. And then we'll just make sure this functions the way we want it to. We're good to go. If you're, one little tip I've noticed with these, if you're ever having an issue and it's getting caught right about here, this spring sometimes will, you can see it's kind of starting on this one, will push this tail out. And if that tail gets to the right spot, it'll catch on this. You don't really have to worry about that too much. This is kind of a beveled edge. You're going to be okay, but just keep that in mind that these springs are consumable. They will wear out over time and enough rounds. And the first thing you'll notice is this will start bouncing off this. But another huge benefit of this brass bushing, which at first I thought was a downside, is the bushing will actually get an imprint of your spring. So as long as you install it with this little tail up, the spring will imprint on the bushing and kind of lock into place and prevent this spring from rotating that much. I've found that I've got some old first gen ones and stuff, the spring is in the same exact spot I put it when I put the gun together. So it's kind of a nice little benefit of these ones, I find. Just one of those. It's a perk, not a bug. Okay, gas system installed. Now we're just gonna slide this back over and put our screws back in. So I forgot to put the dust cover on first, but you'll want to have everything timed before you do your dust cover, because depending on what barrel shroud / handguard you're using, this pin might be too long. It's a bit too long for this one, so we'll just grind it down. I'll show that later, but I forgot to do that before putting this on, so I get to take it back off. It's only 8 screws, even if you've got it all the way installed. But yeah, just pop these off. Also, these little lock washers, buying a couple extra with your kit is not a terrible idea, because if you drop them, they will just bounce 19 feet and you will never find them. With your dust cover, you will slide it in this one, get your dust cover lined up, slide this guy all the way in, wiggle it around till you get it. But you'll notice that this tab sticks out too far, and that wing will interfere with it. So depending on your dust cover, or your handguard, you'll need to take a little bit off this like big long pin here. You can use bolt cutters, you can use a file, you can use whatever you need. I like a bench grinder, but yeah, you'll want to do that. I find just take it down, leave maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch. You can take it down a bit more, and then just wire wheel is your best friend. There's tons of videos online about installing dust covers. Go through one of them. The one thing you might have a little differences is we had to grind this down a little bit so that we have room for this wing. You just want to make sure that that clears. It also holds your pin in. And yeah, you're good to go. We just pop these screws back in, tighten it up, and we're done. Gas system's back in, handguard's timed, torqued, and on. We have our dust cover installed, and you're pretty much done. That's it. You just throw it back together like you normally would. So some optional upgrades, not necessary. You can use a lot of your stock WK parts, but we do have an extended charging handle. Nice thing about this one is when you're in the locked forward position with the dust cover closed, you have no holes in your gun, and it's kind of nice to not have holes in your gun. So I'm a fan of that, and we are working on releasing an upgraded bolt carrier group for this firearm as well. So we are working on releasing these as well. It's a hybrid carrier that will work for Gen 1 and Gen 2. You can find all this stuff at truenortharms.com. You'll just reinstall your bolt carrier group. We went with the upgraded charging handle, so it's just nicer for any environments that are dirty. Okay, so there we go. We are done our install. Everything's back on the gun. Again, just to go over the benefits, you're going to get a pick rail that will actually run every optic. A huge benefit of this upgrade that you don't really think about and is not advertised a ton, but when you're taking this hunting and you have to pass it over a fence or you rub it on a tree, you're not going to have a ton of holes in the side of your gun for dirt to get in. It's once you put the mag in, dust cover's closed, charging handle's locked forward, it's sealed. You're not going to get dust inside your firearm. Dirt and debris is going to stay out, and you're just going to have a much more reliable, it's that peace of mind knowing that I cleaned this, I lubed it, I put it back together, I'm out hunting now, I've got whatever I've got in my sights, and I don't have to worry about whether the gun's going to function or not, because it's nice and clean on the inside. Our dust cover works. Everything locks into place, and you are good to go. One more thing is, because our charging handle is longer, you'll want to make sure, and when you're using the firearm, you shouldn't have this issue unless you really keep it tucked up. This will, like an AR charging handle, depending on what you're running on top, it will interact. So you'll want to keep that in mind. Cycling, you won't have an issue, but if you're trying to run the bolt, it's not going to. So make sure that you keep that in mind with this one. It's still definitely worth the upgrade, but just like an AR charging handle and you have a cheek riser, you need to make sure that you can still run your charging handle with your stock in its, ideal position for you. Another thing why I am such a fan of this raised pick rail is for a long time, everyone was running optics bridging this gap. And that's really useful if you're running a laser or something up front. Most of us are not. So when you think about it, okay, I need this to hold 0 because I'm going to run a laser, or do I want the provisioning to be able to run whatever optic I want? And for most people, most of us, me included, I would much rather have the opportunity to run any optic I find that I like. And I'm not running around in nods with lasers very often, so I don't really need this to hold a super tight 0. I get if you're running an iron sight up front, that is a factor, but again, it's that everything has a cost, everything's a trade-off, and we just thought with the feedback we've been getting, it'd be really, really nice to not have to worry about, hey, is this optic going to run on my WK? You no longer have to stress about that. It's going to run. The nice thing is because it's lifted up, you can still run your optics. If you get one of the crazy new style mounts for super heads-up shooting, you can still run it because you've got room. In order to get this on this, no hope of a quick disconnect. It's just not going to go because this flat is too close to the pick rail. So you cannot get it on without pulling it completely apart, sliding it on the back, and putting it completely together. These are quick disconnect for a reason, because you don't want to have to carry all that glass if you don't need to. With this, boom, it's on. Set it up, get it where you like it. I like it close. And there you go. You're done. So all in all, it is a fantastic upgrade for your WK180-C Gen 2. It's affordable. It is pretty easy to install. You're looking at maybe 40 minutes. Give yourself an hour. Take your time. You're pulling your rifle apart and you're putting it back together, and you want to be able to trust it. So take your time. But it's a super affordable, fantastic upgrade that kind of just gets rid of a lot of the pain points of WK180-C and gives you a much nicer rifle. You'll want to check the website for pricing and updates when we are dropping new upgraded products, for bundle pricing, whatever it is you're looking for. Just take a look at truenortharms.com.